Hey guys, happy Friday. Today is day 4 of attacking the rhetorical analysis free response question. Today we're going to focus on introductions. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about this. I remember back to your writing that a lot of you were really getting good at these introductions. So we're just going to tap back into that previous knowledge and just build on it a little bit where needed. So hopefully this helps you. We're going to kind of from this point on attack it piece by piece of the actual essay, because you've kind of gotten the idea of what do I do with the prompt, what do I do with the passage, and now boom, you've done all that great reading and those great notes. So now you get to writing. Okay, so in rhetorical analysis introduction, so remember, as you're writing this essay, your intro is like your first impression. You want to try to prove that you're credible, and that's where you use your ethos there. You want to connect with your audience, in other words, pathos, all while showing you understand the rhetorical situation, and that's like the sophistication. If you guys remember what the scoring guide looks like, you either get that 1 or a 0 for sophistication. And while in your intro, it's not specifically a part of the rubric, but you have the opportunity to hit the sophistication point within the introduction. In your intro, I would include your thesis, and this is when I think back to your writing, you guys were doing this. It can be anywhere, but I would really try to put it in the introduction. It doesn't necessarily need to be at a specific place in the intro, but really try to put it in there. While there isn't a section on the rubric that specifically says intro, there is a section for thesis. If you remember that, it's a 1 or a 0 for the thesis. And then, like I said just a second ago, sophistication. Your intro is your opportunity to get some of those sophistication points, or I should say that 1 sophistication point. So you also want to introduce the subject, the writer, and the piece that you had just read. Okay. So there are good intros and there are great intros. So we're going to kind of look at the difference between the two. And to help you guys understand those two things, I thought of this metaphor. We all have been to McDonald's or Freddy's or wherever it is that or QT has really good ones these days. Or I don't know, haven't been to QT in a long time. I'm assuming maybe they still have them, but they definitely had them pre-pandemic. That vanilla ice cream cone. Like, I really like a plain vanilla ice cream cone. I'm not going to turn it down. I think it's good. It satisfies that ice cream craving. So that's going to be our metaphor for the good intro. Then we have great. This is that perfected sundae, your favorite. If you're like my kids, you like the chocolates, some of them like the cherry, one of them does not. It's very, very specific. You got the colorful sprinkles, you got the better cone. And that is going to be what we consider that great introduction. It's a little bit above and beyond. It maybe took a little bit more time, but it was totally worth it, right? Okay, so more literally speaking, in a good introduction, it's something you have probably done pretty quickly. It has all those essentials that we're going to look at here in a second. It reflects that you have knowledge on the topic and the rhetorical situation, and it definitely gets the job done. So there's not necessarily anything wrong with just a good one. I just think great is where you're pushing that sophistication and giving that gleaming first impression. So if you're like a Bachelor friend, if you're a Bachelor fan, excuse me, like the great intro is the one that gets that first rose, like the first impression rose. So in a great intro, there is enrichment. You have taken a little more time, you have hit that sophistication, and you've gone beyond the basics of the good introduction. So like here in a little bit, I'm going to show you this like technically what an intro does. If it's a great intro, you're going to go beyond just those technicalities a little bit. Okay, so these are a few examples. This is from the Albright text that you read, and I'm actually going to read them out loud. Example 1, United States Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, in her 1997 speech to the graduating class of Mount Holyoke College, proposes that everyone strive to make an impact, even if met with opposition. She articulates her proposition by firstly alluding to recent accomplishments in history across the world, then by shifting to an encouraging rebuttal regarding doubt, and finally by calling her audience to action in the name of progress. Albright's purpose is to inspire courage and faith in individuals in order to promote human progress. She adopts an encouraging tone for her audience. It's pretty good, right? Okay, example 2. Madeleine Albright's commencement speech in 1997 at Mount Holyoke College came at a time of peace and prosperity for American society. However, in this speech, she urges her audience to seek out problems that still exist in the world and help fix them. By referencing the efforts of marginalized women who are fighting to make a difference, utilizing powerful diction and repetition, the illustrating American and illustrating American efforts to improve the world even further. Albright inspires a young generation of graduate students on the brink of adulthood with the future in their hands to never settle. Also, always persevere and fight to elevate the status of women around the world. Okay, so one of these is good and one of these is great. Maybe it's already obvious to you. That's fine. What I want you to do is take a second, if you would just pause, and I want you to go through and just try to notice what is similar about these two introductions. I think by looking at the similarities, you'll see that they both have hit on what is needed, but I think that it makes it a little bit more obvious that which one kind of went above and beyond. So go ahead and hit pause, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, so hopefully you have had a chance to go through this yourselves. I have highlighted a few things, underlined a few things. So my yellow highlights are things that I thought were hitting on some of just like those really easy technical things that you always want to bring up in an introduction. Who wrote it? Who are they speaking to? Kind of like what was their general idea? So that's what you'll see in the yellow. So you see that it's Madeleine Albright. She's speaking to a graduating class, the specific class. We know that it's all women. Her hope is to inspire. In the first example, I also highlighted opposition because you have to think in mind, like, is everyone going to agree with her, or could she be speaking to people who may possibly not agree with her? That's always important. And I think it just speaks to like the importance of the audience. So remember, you're giving a speech on a controversial topic. If you're speaking to a group that you know leans more liberal, you have to think about how you're going to reach them. If you're speaking to a group who leans more conservative, you have to think about how you're going to best talk to them. So even though you might be making the same point to both of those groups of people, you have to think about how the words you say changes how they feel depending on what their thoughts are before you even started talking to them. So audience is huge. Then the actual underlined parts, those are what I felt was like the person writing these introductions seeing the rhetorical situation, and they both kind of do a great job and you can see what direction they're going in. But I think example 2 is a bit more specific in terms of we know what this person's going to write about. They said, utilizing powerful diction and repetition, illustrating American efforts to improve the world even further. Albright inspires a young generation, and she kind of goes on. So that is actually what we could, the example of the great one. I think you just know where that person's going. Their sophistication is a little bit stronger. I think the end of it really shows that too. Albright inspires a young generation of graduate students on the brink of adulthood with the future in their hands to never settle, also always persevere and fight to elevate the status of women around the world. It's where the other one just says she adopts an encouraging tone for her audience. So I think that's a good example. Look at the difference between those last two sentences, or the last sentence in each one, and you can see example 2 was more specific. She uses encouraging tone. That's great, but it's kind of like what I keep saying with those so what. So like, what does that mean? What does an encouraging tone look like? What is she expecting them to do? And example 2 just goes a little farther. Okay, so we looked at this. This was taken straight from that one packet that I would refuse to call a packet. I think I would call it like the compilation of something really wonderful papers. I don't know. Anyway, you guys probably remember. This is taken right from that, and I like it because it has that technical stuff of it. If you are following the technical makeup of this RA, you could be writing a good one, but it includes like strong verbs. There was a list on that handout, and I'll find some way to upload that handout here in Google eventually so that you have it. But if you do these 3 things, you're going to have like the minimum of it, and hopefully if you've used good word choice and maybe added a little bit of flair, you would have a good essay. But you really want to think like, what is a strong verb that's unique? Am I sounding just like every other essay? Because there should be a way to use all this information and know that the writers all around the world are using the same information, but do it with your own voice and your own sophistication. So for those people who like to kind of like check things off a list of what you have and what you need, this would be a good thing to look at. And you might want to come back to these when you look at your homework, so I'll mention that too. Another sample intro. This is once again taken straight from that packet. This was a different prompt, but once again, I just put that there. So as you're writing your own intros, you have another sample to look at. I won't read that one for you. And then your homework. So The point of this today was to hopefully just give you some good examples, something you can refer back to as you look at this homework. So in Google Classroom, you will find an assignment. It's called AP English Language RA Intros, Good versus Great. And you are going to evaluate 2 samples and kind of like write about what you thought about each of them. And then you're going to write your own using the Thatcher piece. So you've already looked at the Thatcher piece and you probably have some good background on it. I've included that text again in case you want to revisit it or just refresh your memory. But you'll just be writing the intro. And I think this will be a good way for me to just get a good snapshot of where you are with writing. I think intros for RA personally are pretty easy. Easier than argument or even the synthesis. So I think that is a good thing for you guys. Okay, so go check out that homework. Let me know if you have questions. You guys have been doing a great job of reaching out to me, but know that I am always available. Remind might be the easiest way for me just because I usually have my phone around and sometimes like my kids are doing their homework on the computer, but it's easier for me to just like shoot back a quick remind. But anytime you need something, please reach out to me. And this is all of your homework for today. And remember, starting next week, we are not having school on Mondays anymore. So I won't have any work for you until Tuesday. I'll probably upload something that goes Tuesday, Wednesday, and then upload something that goes Thursday, Friday. But that was a decision the district made to no longer have you guys doing work on Mondays. So now a day for you to rest, a day for you to do whatever you need to do. But I will be chatting with you guys on Tuesday. Thanks. Have a good weekend.